Here now with reaction is former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee and former senior advisor to President Trump, Stephen Miller. Governor, let me start with you. Did they believe what they were saying, or was it always just a cynical play? What they thought was Donald Trump's weakness, they would build their campaign on, knowing we'll figure it out when we get there.
Pete, I think the truth is they didn't know what they were saying. That's what made it so bad. And Joe Biden really, I think, burped out a little bit of truth the other day when he didn't expect that he would be doing it. When he said there's no federal solution, I don't think that's what he intended to say, but it's the truth. And deep down, he knew it. Interestingly, that's exactly what Donald Trump said from the beginning. He said that we have to let governors manage this crisis. He understood, he respected the 10th Amendment. Joe Biden didn't. What I find most interesting is that all of the legal positions that the White House under Biden has taken have been because he has the authority to set the policy. Now he's admitted not only does he not have the authority, but he doesn't have a clue how to fix what he claimed he would have fixed long before now. I think the Biden administration and all their attorneys need to go to the courts and say, forget about all that stuff that we filed. Just go ahead and mark it down. We had no idea what we were doing.
Stephen, I remember the Trump administration being criticized. Effectively, the argument was, well, you're passing the buck to the states so that you don't have to take responsibility if things go wrong. Or was it different, Stephen? A recognition that a challenge of this magnitude, the China virus, required dynamic local solutions from people who could actually make the decisions. And ultimately, there's no way a federal government in Washington, D.C. could apply mandates that are effective in every place, considering New York City is a little different than rural Oklahoma. Was that part of the calculation for the Trump administration?
Well, I had the privilege, as you know, of working for President Trump when he launched the greatest national industrial mobilization since World War II, when this pathogen landed on our shores. When it came to core issues of civil rights and civil liberties, he respected local citizens, local governments, and state governments. But when it came to putting together a national response, let's not forget, this was a completely new pathogen. From scratch, President Trump brought us tests, PCRs, antigen tests, rapid tests, at-home tests. He brought us a bevy of therapeutics, including monoclonal antibodies that have proven to be remarkably effective. He brought us 3 vaccines from scratch. And he brought masks, brought us ventilators, brought us gloves, brought us medical gowns, all of this from scratch. Joe Biden inherited every single one of those tools, plus a year of clinical data. And what have we gotten? Record death, record cases. That is an inexcusable failure. And this statement now that he's helpless as president is nothing more than a cry for help, saying that he is in over his head and has no clue what he's doing.
Is this, Governor, the beginning of a backtrack? Is this the beginning of staring at poll numbers, staring at case rates? Not that that's the right metric, because it isn't, but looking at a new variant and new lockdowns that are occurring in certain places. Are they saying, well, it's just not working? Maybe the Trump playbook was more effective than ours.
Well, it was more effective, and that's one of the things that we have seen. Stephen Miller was exactly right what he said. And if you remember what President Trump did, he made available all of the resources and assets and said, if you're a governor, then ask for the help and we will send it to you, but you'll manage it. And so he sent hospital ships to New York. They never needed them or used them, but he sent them because they said they needed them. He sent ventilators there, more than they needed, but he made them available. That's how it's supposed to work. The governors manage the crisis, but the federal government is an assistant to help provide resources and assets. What Joe Biden came along and said was, I'm going to do it. It's going to be fixed by me. And Joe Biden got in there and found out that the people he was most critical of, people like Ron DeSantis, people like Greg Abbott and others, were actually managing the crisis a heck of a lot better than he was. And so I don't think that he intended to basically wave the white flag in that press event yesterday with the governors, but that's exactly what he did.
It sure looked like it. And Stephen, before I go to you real quick, Governor, if you're a governor right now of a free state, or you take the mentality of balancing actual freedom and livelihood vis-a-vis science, whatever that means by those who espouse it these days, what's the move of those governors now that effectively Biden has said there is no federal response? Is there more governors can do?
Well, I think they're frustrated that they've spent a year waiting on Joe Biden to give them leadership that he never gave them. And of course, some of them, quite frankly, are probably very just bumfuddled because they thought the whole time was that they were supposed to just wait and get orders from Washington. But the effective governors haven't waited. They've taken the crisis, they've managed it, and their people are better off and they're more free. That's how it's supposed to work. A simple reading of the 10th Amendment would help validate that.
Stephen, if you, it's a hypothetical, but it's worth looking into a bit. If you were in the White House with Donald Trump right now, considering where we are, there probably would have been a Delta, probably would have been an Omicron, who knows? But this Omicron variant is much different. Thank goodness it's much less lethal. At least we know that, we believe that to be true, although more highly transmissible. What approach do you think a Trump administration would be taking right now, or a reasonable administration would be taking?
Well, I have no doubt as to what President Trump would have done if he continued to occupy the Oval Office. First of all, he would have continued to push new therapeutics, which would have massively cut deaths, massively cut hospitalizations. Secondly, he would have never undermined confidence in the vaccine the way that Joe Biden did. Thirdly, and again, going back to Governor Huckabee's point, he would have made sure states had the resources, especially testing, where Joe Biden has bungled it beyond imagination. President Trump would never have used the cudgel of brutal mandates, especially on our children. These toddler mask mandates are insane and depriving children of a crucial development window. And finally, on top of all of that, he would have worked in partnership with our governors to craft local strategies that made sense, particularly with an emphasis on sheltering the highest risk individuals, not a broad-based, blunt approach.
Absolutely. Stephen, thank you. Governor Huckabee, Stephen Miller, thank you both very much tonight. Really appreciate your insight this evening.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.